Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So in this video I'd like to go over our companion and how to maximize her damage by using Warlord inspiration insignia bonuses and also Indomitable Runestones, and currently within the game how many you should be using to maximize that damage potential across you and your companion so that you don't sacrifice so much of your own damage. And also, you know, it's Neverwinter. Sometimes things just don't work out the way you think they would. So let's first start off with our Warlord Inspiration Insignia bonuses. Now you can currently see I do actually have 3 of them here. And I've went and tested it out and they do indeed stack up to give you a maximum of what we would see, one of them giving you 20%, the next one would supposedly give you 20%, but in fact it only gives 10%, and the third one gives you only 5%. So it kind of reduces there the more you have, giving you an overall total amount of 35% extra damage for your companion. Now with regards to other insignia bonuses which you could be using instead, there are of course ones where you can increase your damage potential by, let's say when you kill a target, increase your critical strike, but that's just not reliable. And there are other ones I do recommend are, for example, when you use an artifact power, you will reduce your cooldowns by 2 seconds. This can be mightily helpful within, let's say, a trial where you want to get off as many encounters as possible when everybody has cast their artifacts. And other than that, there are of course a few other utility ones that you could be using, but none of them are really going to maximize your damage. For example, when your companion attacks, you gain critical severity and defense. Usually you don't really want to base your stats on something contemporary like that. And also Assassin's Covenant is very good for giving you those extra offensive ratings, but at a cost of reducing your defensive rating. So I am also using 2 of those. So with testing out these Warlord inspirations, I went and tested them with Xuna herself. And as you can see here, this was a test with 0 Warlord inspirations and 6 of those Indomitable Runestones, which we'll go over a little bit later. And you can see we gained just over 24,000 encounter DPS on our Xuna. I do however named as Aelin. Across the board I made sure to test them for longer than 10 minutes to make sure it was fair and always in the same situation, with always having 100% combat advantage uptime on that dummy. So this was with 0 warlords. So the next one is with 1 warlord, and you can see our damage encounter DPS has gone up to 25.2 thousand. That is roughly about a 4% increase on the overall encounter damage. Now this is unfortunately not the 20% as we should be obtaining with our warlord inspirations. So yeah, overall, it doesn't seem to be actually impacting the full amount of damage as you would think it would. There seems to be some underlying effects where it only increases a portion, and it's most likely to do with using these Indomitable Runestones and those damage values not stacking. For example, looking at Indomitable Runestones, you can see if you have 6 of them there, that's each Indomitable giving you another 20%. That's 120% from Indomitable Runestones, meaning that's doubling the damage, right? So then if you went and had those Warlord inspirations, you wouldn't see a direct 20% overall increase. You just see an increase like I have here, which is about 1,000 encounter DPS increase. At least that's what I tested. So we then went on to test with 2 Warlord inspirations, and we did get a slight increase in overall encounter DPS again there, but the duration of the test time was significantly long this time as I kind of just left it. And we got nearly 26,000 encounter DPS there at 25,953. So we did get an increase with our second Warlord inspiration. And finally going to our 3rd Warlord inspiration, so we have a total of 3 of them there, we have a 26.5 thousand. Now all of these values are kind of rough estimates, right? Ideally I would have these test durations for like an hour each to make sure you gain a guaranteed across the board overall result. But in terms of whether stacking up Warlord inspirations actually increases your companion's damage, from what I have tested, yes, it indeed does, albeit by a marginal amount. So you can of course go and swap in other insignia bonuses if you so wished, if those damage values don't look like a lot to you. Because looking at the math from what our tests revealed, we got about a 10% overall damage increase from having no warlords to having 3 of them. So yeah, that's pretty minimal, considering that's just for your companion's damage. But overall, there really isn't any other insignia bonuses that are going to increase your effective overall damage, and thus just having these can help out better in that regard. Of course, you might want to consider using some other utility ones that might heal you, but that aside, Warlord inspirations, all 3 of them will stack up and will give you extra damage on your companion. Now let's go to these Indomitable Runestones, and as I've mentioned, each one gives you an extra 20% damage for your companion. At least that's what it says in the tooltip. And does it actually give that amount? Well, we'll see. So I went ahead and tested it out with having 3 of these Warlord inspirations, so we have that damage stacked up. We know that all 3 will maximize the amount of damage from them, and then we went and tested out by first using no Indomitable Runestones. So this was the test we got here, and you can see the damage has dropped significantly, at least by more than a half. You can see it's at 12,600 there in counter DPS. Significant drop in overall damage from 6 down to 0. So you definitely want to be running these Indomitable Runestones, at least if you're running a pet like Xuna, which will significantly benefit from them. So then with 2 Indomitable Runestones, you can see we're at 16,592 in counter DPS, jumping up to 4 of them. We're over the 20,000 mark there at 21,772 in counter DPS, and finally going up to 6 of them, we have the 26,516 in counter DPS there. That being with 6 Indomitable Runestones and 3 of those Warlord inspirations, and that's maximizing out our damage for our companion. So with stacking the Warlord inspirations and those Indomitables, we gained about a 210% increase through our Indomitable Runestones. It's roughly about that. Lastly, I'd like to mention the Liliira's Bell of Empowerment. It does say it will increase your companion's damage by 20%. However, the cooldown on this is 2 minutes. So we'll jump over to the dummy real quick. Now this is the dummy that I did test Xuna out as a single target. We hit the dummy and then Xuna will start fighting it. Now when we ring the bell, it's down here in my belt item, we press that key and the bell's gone off, and you can see now the bell icon next to Xuna. You can see it on like her buff there, the bar there when we hover over it. Unfortunately, it's not up here. Anyway, you can see that will last a total of 30 seconds or so, and the bell will only be able to cast after 2 minutes. Meaning, overall, if you're in a long duration test or a fight, you will effectively gain a 5% damage buff, at least that's what it says, for your companion. So we went and tested this out, and it seemed to affect the overall amount of damage your companion can deal, and we got to 27,830 encounter DPS, which is about a roughly a 5% increase or so on our overall damage during the test. So that is definitely going to be something you want to pick up. But it is an event item, and it's probably going to cost quite a lot on the auction house right now. Not something that you vitally need to get, as again, it's only a 5% increase to your damage on your companion, not you. Now with buffing your companion, you should be able to get your companion up to about 10 to 20% of your overall damage. If your companion's dealing more than that, then generally you're really not performing too well yourself, as in your own character, and you should be looking at then what powers you're using and how effective you're using them within combat. But that aside, that's going to be everything in this video. There are of course other things that do buff up your companion, like your weapon damage, your own offense statistics, but all of those you generally don't want to sacrifice to enhance your companion and taking a hit to your own damage output. So highly recommend prioritize your own damage first and then your companions. Alright, so hopefully I presented this well and it was somewhat informative and you learned a thing or two. Consider leaving the video a like, and if you're new around here, consider subscribing. We'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now.